What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Video Homicide, back with day 10 of the 31 days of horror here at Video Homicide. Today, we're going to celebrate the 10th day by checking out a French film. Never been too big on French films. I've heard great things. I just haven't seen that many of them personally. And this is the 2009 film, The Horde. Now, there's another film called The Horde that I believe is also zombie-related that came out a little bit later in about 2016. I've not seen that film, so keep that in mind. This film was directed by Yannick Dahan and Benjamin Roche. So this is a movie that I want to say was actually made in France, but I could be wrong on that. It's basically, if you've seen the movie The Raid, which is an Indonesian film. Yeah, this is a French horror film, but if you've seen the film The Raid, directed by Gareth Edwards, it kind of follows the same formula as The Raid, or not really the same formula, but the same kind of setup. Basically, like 1 minute of love and 99 minutes of action. Whereas instead of like, non-stop bullets flying, even though there's a lot of bullets flying in this film, it's more, as opposed to The Raid with the SWAT team going in to apprehend this gangster. It's about these police officers going to avenge the death of one of their friends who died at the hands of this gangster that is holed up in this apartment complex. It reminds, like, I'd seen this, I believe, on IFC or one of those channels back in the day. I've constantly referenced when my dad had this amazing cable package. Saw tons of movies like Subway Stories. This one, Dog Pound, which is a great Canadian prison film. Dog Pound is a really good movie. If you've not seen it, look it up. You could watch that with Sean Penn's Bad Boys and have like an amazing double feature. I've done it personally. It's great. But this movie, The Horde, it's like I said, it starts off at this cop's funeral, and there's this little interaction between the wife of the deceased talking with like these other officers. It's kind of not, I watched it in French with the English subtitles, so maybe the English subtitles were kind of lacking, because that happens from time to time. But more or less, she knows that these cops are going to avenge the death of her husband, more or less. And they all kind of band together. So I believe there's 4 of them. One of them's a woman, one of them's a bald-headed fuck, one of them's like a young guy, and one of them's kind of like a seasoned, grizzled, dude in like his late 30s, early 40s. But they go to this apartment building that's like in the middle of nowhere, totally run down, looks like shit. There's, of course, like henchmen, much like in like a Batman Arkham Asylum video game, like waiting by the door with like dogs and shit. And they get into the building, and they finally get all the way up to the apartment in question. There's not much action in between them getting to the building and them getting up there, other than a guy getting knocked out, and then he gets stabbed, because they're like, it's going to be a bloodbath. The one guy says it doesn't have to be a bloodbath, and then the bald head guy says it needs to be a bloodbath. So I was like, all right, I'll take the bloodbath. So after they get up to the apartment in question, they kind of like rig like a little bit of C4 like on the lock of the door. And, they kind of start a little bit of a commotion outside the door, which leads the gangsters to be notified, and they fucking shoot through the door, and they fatally wound the bald-headed guy, who is kind of like the leader at this point in the game. But now they get dragged in this apartment, and the dude, like some dude who was like being held hostage, is kind of vague of who it was, but they're like, see that guy? And they just blow him away, and then they close the door. And then, they're sitting there kind of being interrogated, like fucking how many cops are coming, and you can hear sirens outside, explosions, all this crazy stuff. So the gangster thinks that, these guys are they're lying. There's not just them, there's more of them. And all of a sudden you hear like this growl and this motion and movement coming from the door of where the guy was just shot. And then out comes the zombie, and, terror ensues. And then the rest of the film is basically about them trying to get out of the building, and in turn people get killed. They meet up with this old man who's like the best part of this film. He's got like so many good one-liners and stuff. Like, one of my favorite things about this film is, in order to cope with the horrific situation, these gangsters are like doing coke to kind of like amp themselves up, keep themselves a little, give them a little bit, get ready for the ultra violence, as Alex DeLarge would say. But the old man says that, like, compared to the, I'm not going to say the actual racist word that he says, but you know what, fuck it, I'm going to say it just because, you know, I'm not calling anyone, and I'm just saying from the film, but he says that this Coke is like sugar compared to what he had in the Chinkland. And I just thought that was so, like, this guy's nuts, man. He has tons of other one-liners, but the other one that I can really think of is at the end when he kind of sacrifices himself. He's like, I don't want to die of a heart attack, because he's like having fun with like killing all these zombies, and he's kind of almost living in this weird flashback, like war flashback kind of thing happening. Like he thinks that all of the people in the hallways are like Korean, and he refers to them as Chinks, and it's very like almost liberating for this guy. And like he talks about how his wife was like hated the apartment, but he liked it, and how her tits were down to her knees, and all this kind of madness. But eventually, one by one, they get picked off, and of course, it just ends up with you know, this woman and who was a cop, and then the lead gangster, and they escape the building. Like it's badass. There's lots of good effects in this film, lots of practical effects. There's lots of CG as well, but it just comes with that era pretty much. So if you're looking for a fun time, I got this for $4. I don't know where the fuck I got it from. It must have been like some kind of thrift shop, but yeah, like I don't really know, man. Like I feel like movies from like this era are kind of the last, you know, like this came out, I believe, before the zombie trend exploded, you know, with The Walking Dead, you know, and then like fuck, like I can't even tell you how many movies came out after that show came out that were like trying to follow the exact same formula. Same with monster flicks. So like your average creature feature, i.e. Sharknado, 5-headed shark versus 5-headed octopus, and there's just so many things like that. It was disgusting because not only were those movies shitty, the acting was shitty, the production was shitty, the special effects were shitty. It was like they got $1 million to make a movie, and they fucking, you know, spent as little as they could on each aspect of the film to like keep the money, or like I don't know, because those movies are just trash, you know. But this is one of those good ones that came out in that time, and I really did like it. This was the second time that I watched this movie. It says on the back, an epic end of the world battle between gangsters, cops, and zombies, all caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. So if you're interested, I would even pair this with The Raid. You know, if you're not going to pair The Raid with the sequel of The Raid, but, you know, because like apartment building stuff, like there's another movie from I believe the 80s, right here, called Tenement, which kind of is like another type of movie that takes place in like a housing project. Like it's fucking awesome, man. And that movie's a good double feature with this one. These are all bootlegs, but whatever, man. Enemy Territory was another good one. Tony Todd is in this film as like the leader of this gang called the Vampires, which is awesome. Highly recommend both those flicks. They're on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. That's where I got mine from. So yeah, man, I appreciate everybody for watching. Leave a 666 in the comments, and on to day 11 tomorrow. Adios.